The United Nations has passed a landmark resolution that urges the International Court of Justice to outline nations' legal obligations related to curbing climate change disasters and their impacts on vulnerable communities. The resolution, which was co-sponsored by around 132 countries, was adopted by consensus. This resolution seeks to make it easier to hold polluting countries legally accountable for failing to tackle the climate emergency in a vote which was hailed as a historic victory for climate justice. The UN General Assembly adopted the resolution spearheaded by Vanuatu, a tiny Pacific island nation vulnerable to extreme climate effects, and youth activists to secure a legal opinion from the International Court of Justice to clarify states' obligations to tackle the climate crisis and specify any consequences countries should face for inaction. Island nations and developing countries such as Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, Madagascar and Sri Lanka have contributed least to global greenhouse gas emissions but are bearing the brunt of erratic and extreme weather events such as hurricanes, floods, drought, extreme heat and floods that is upending water and food security and fueling forced migration. This historic resolution can probably be the beginning of a new era in multilateral climate cooperation, one that is more fully focused on upholding the rule of international law, and an era that might place human rights and intergenerational equity at the forefront of climate decision making. While the opinion from the world's highest court will not be binding in domestic courts, establishing international legal rules can be influential on judges and governments. It also represents the first attempt to establish climate action obligations under international law, which advocates to strengthen climate-related litigation by helping vulnerable states and advocates holding countries accountable for their action as well as inaction. The resolution, which was co-sponsored by more than 120 countries including the UK but not the US, will help establish a legal litmus test of sorts for the global climate justice movement seeking to hold countries to account for climate failures in the courts. It came on the day the Biden administration opened an auction to drill 73 million acres of the Gulf of Mexico for oil and gas, and just days after the self-acclaimed climate president had approved a massive multi-decade-long oil and gas drilling project in Alaska, which will create one of the largest carbon bombs on United States soil. The resolution had emerged out of mounting frustration at the mismatch between the global community's rhetoric and action on climate change amid escalating losses for countries such as Vanuatu, which face an existential threat due to sea level rise. In essence, the ICG advisory will help establish whether there is legal obligation for countries to do what they had committed to in non-binding treaties such as the 2015 Paris Climate Accord, and whether failure to do so can be challenged through litigation. It has come just a week after the final report by the IPCC, which underscored the urgent need to phase out fossil fuels to curtail global heating and avoid catastrophic climate chaos. Scientists have often warned that transitioning to renewables and green technology is not enough. Fossil fuel projects must be phased out, not expanded. This adoption of resolution may perhaps set a new benchmark in the arena of climate justice, even though the decision of the International Court of Justice may not be binding.
Subscribe to Oneindia channel and never miss an update.